Hey everybody, welcome to a special edition of Tech Teschel. Today we are going to be putting together my brand new personal rig. All the shit's laid out here in front of me, even though you can't see it. The old one's already been torn down, so let's dive right the fuck in. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, confession time. So this video is not really about my personal rig. And as you may have gathered from the hint I left in my last video, this is mostly going to be about that PM961 currently sitting in my M.2 slot, housing my operating system and receiving this audio recording. And for the record, this video is not about the individual who sold me this drive, but a general commentary on the acquisition of OEM components in general. So where did I acquire a 512GB PM961 NVMe M.2 SSD for 160 Canadian dollars, which is less than half the retail price of the 960 EVO, which is essentially the same drive, just a little bit faster with lower durability, I think. Anyhow, the answer is a complicated one. So I bought it from a guy on Kijiji who had a lot of stuff for sale, like a lot. Multiple copies of the same parts, many of which you've probably never heard of because they carry different model numbers from their retail versions. And I just happened to notice that one of his items, being the PM961, along with a few others actually, were underlisted. It's almost like he didn't know what they quite were worth, and I decided to take advantage of it and make a purchase. Now, who is this individual and how did he acquire these parts is the real question. I live in a city called Toronto. You may have heard of it. It's the largest city in Canada. And north of Toronto, stretching all the way to a place called Waterloo, which you also may have heard of, there are a ton of tech companies that have headquarters here. And in between those buildings, there are smaller companies that are IT firms of some sort or another that will act as RMA centers for various major makers of electronics who do not feel the need to invest in a satellite office, but would rather contract another company to do their bidding. And what these companies will do is they will take the RMA parts, do board level repairs, component swapping, submit reports, expense the claims, and then send back the product to the customer if everything goes as planned. Seems like a pretty tidy solution. It saves the laptop makers and tablet makers a bunch of money from having to ship items halfway across the world and get them repaired. And it also allows for Canadian customers to get faster service. Everybody wins. The only problem is some of these employees who are not particularly well paid will pocket a lot of these parts after reporting them as being broken when they are perfectly fine. So that is essentially the crux of it. Grandma sends in her laptop. The company says, yes, indeed, it seems that your laptop is broken. The motherboard is fried and will need to be replaced, as well as the SSD. They submit the report to the laptop maker. In some cases, the laptop maker will insist that it be returned because the repairs are complicated, but in most cases, they'll permit either a small board level repair, like replacing a resistor or something like that, or a component swap and have them send it back to the customer. Everybody's happy. But in reality, that SSD was fine, and because the company wants to save money, they're not going to insist on having the damaged product shipped back in a lot of cases, so it is instead discarded into the pocket of the repair guy who sells it on the side. If ethically this bothers you, don't do it. Don't blame you in the least, just avoid it. Legally, you will be fine. You have full deniability. Don't ask questions you don't want to know the answer to. Don't ask where these things are coming from, especially if you already know exactly where they came from and you just don't want to know. And just take your shit and be on your merry way. All that being said, I still cannot recommend this practice, but if you are going to dive in and you want to find some of these people and get cheap parts off of them, this is how you find them and this is what you need to know. Number one, look for ads that have a lot of stuff in them. Not full system teardowns, but like these people, and I'll show you a few right here, that have like a listing for like 10 different processors with a price beside each one. Multiple copies available, local pickup only. Here's my phone number, call me. Buying in bulk will get you a discount, yada, yada, yada. These are the people that have this stuff in bulk. They need to move it fast, and they are in a prime position to be talked down because they just care about getting rid of it. Also, as I mentioned, these sellers like nothing more than to do lots of volume, so if you can buy more than one of something off of them, or 10 or 15 or 20, do so and resell the excess. You might even get your intended stuff for free. And lastly, these people don't know a fuck of a lot about pricing, because what likely happened with my drive was the guy just looked at the average price of SSDs of that volume, slapped a price on it and said, there you go. Of course, he was dead wrong in terms of assessing its value and ended up paying to the tune of about $100 by underselling it to me for $160. Anyhow, it looks like I'm just about done building this piece of shit, so let's throw it back to face Jeff and close it out. Anyway, folks, there you have it, the candid truth about where some of this stuff comes from. Whether or not you take this information and choose to exploit or avoid it is entirely up to you. I hope you don't judge me too harshly. I just figured this information would be better out there so that you people are aware of it more than anything. It's always been one of those bits of information that I've debated about sharing for the longest time, and I finally decided to just spill it all out there because if you're going to be entering the secondhand market, you're going to encounter it sooner or later, and I might as well prep you now rather than have it sort of like spring up on you later. As for my personal rig, it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's working beautifully. I've optimized it for absolute silence. It's much quieter than my former mini ITX enclosure, and it will serve me well for the next few months until I decide whether or not I'm going to upgrade to either Kaby Lake or Zen or neither. And we'll be back then for another one of these in a few months. Until then, follow me on Twitter, Reddit, subscribe, like, do all that stuff. All of it really matters. And the Twitter thing especially. I tweet a lot these days. It's where I am. So if you want to keep up on things, get little tidbits of information here and there, often in addition to telling jokes, we'll convey little bits of advice. Stay tuned there. I know Twitter sucks, but believe me, I alone am worth it. Thanks once again for watching, and I'll see you next time.